Today we'll be speaking to Rashmi Mohanty, a finance professional with over 25 years of experience in the finance and corporate sector. So Rashmi, to start off, could you tell us the difference between working in the finance and treasury function of a bank as compared to working in a company or an NBFC?
Okay. Thank you, Sean, for having me over your channel. First of all, good morning. Let me just give you an example, and probably that will make it clear as to what is the difference between working in a finance and a treasury role in a bank, in a company, or in an NBFC. So think of three different distinct entities. You've got a wholesaler, you've got a consumer, and you also got a middleman somewhere in the middle who's also a consumer. So think of the bank as a wholesaler. He's a service provider from the Reserve Bank of India, from the Ministry of Finance, from Government of India. They've been given special powers to offer certain kind of financial products and services to us consumers. The company is actually the taker of those services. Okay. And the NBFC is both. They are the takers of those products and services, and in turn also provide some part of those products and services to the consumer or to the companies. So if you just think of that chain as to how that chain works, this is exactly where a bank, an NBFC, and a corporate come or fall in that chain. So the difference really is that your product is the same. All the finance and treasury folks, whether you are in a bank, in an NBFC, or in a corporate, you need to know your basics well. You need to know the financial products well. You need to know the regulations that govern in selling or using those products in India, for example. You need to know how the markets operate, who are the key players in the market. The only difference is where do you sit in that chain? Are you the one who's the giver, which is what a bank is? So when you are looking at it from your perspective, you need to think of it, how will I make money if I were to sell this particular product to a corporate or to an NBFC? As a corporate, you will always think, let me choose the right product. So which bank should I go to? What product will serve my need better? So your basics don't change. It's just where you sit in the value chain, where you how you use those products, what you use it for is what the difference is. But you still need to know your financial products. You need to know each and every product that a bank offers, whether it's a fixed deposit, whether it's a bank loan, whether it's a car loan or a home loan, whatever it is. It's just that the use or the direction in which you kind of use that product or you manage it changes.
Right. So thank you for highlighting those differences. So, to go on to the next question, could you tell us how you see fintech startups increasing their market share over banks over the next decade?
So fintechs have been a recent phenomenon, and it's really about how you're using technology to access a larger market. Now, banks, because of their sheer size, in some instances because they are heavily regulated as well. In some instances because they just didn't have the capital to go out and reach out to larger masses, and therefore RBI keeps talking about financial inclusion. We need to do financial inclusion. We need to get to the underserved or the underbanked customers as well. So fintechs have come in to fill that gap where they've used technology to fulfill the customers' needs who may still have an access to the banking system or who may not have access to the banking system. So I do see that fintechs will remain as partners the banks and for the NBFCs to reach out to a larger customer base and make sure that we have each and every person in this country who becomes financial literate, understands what banking is, understands what financial products are, and therefore manage their investments, their savings very well. So they are here to stay. And we've seen a huge development in that space in the last few years in terms of how analytics, big data, artificial intelligence. They've been helping us first sometimes put the customers in a particular set so that you can apply a certain kind of product to that particular set, do an analysis as to what the customers' needs are, etc. And they are here to stay. But I think there is no competition. Fintechs will have to partner banks. Banks will have to partner fintechs to make sure that together we can achieve RBI's dream of financial inclusion.
Right. So speaking from a student's perspective, what do you think are the important skills students should develop if they're interested in pursuing finance as a career?
Okay. See, I think the very first thing, Sean, that all students should do is be aware of what's happening in the financial space. And I'm not saying that you need to know at your age the nitty-gritties of what's happening with a Reserve Bank of India regulations or Ministry of Finance, what are they up to. But in general, knowing what's happening in the economy, are we doing well? Are we so for example, if you just take the current scenario where everybody's been hit by COVID, how has that impacted the markets? How has that impacted the equity markets? How are the interest rates, etc.? So it's more about general knowledge that you should have. There are specific, in school, when you're doing your class 11, 12, I think understanding of balance sheet, which is really about the accounts, the subject accounts is important. Economics to me, and understanding economics, and developing a taste for it is very important, because finally at the end of the day, in this world, nothing moves in isolation, Sean, as you would know, right? Everything is linked to the other. So just to give you an example, when people say, oh, equity markets have gone up, but equity markets alone haven't gone up. There is something else that's happened in the bond market. There's something else that happened in the FX market, which made the equity. So everything is linked in this economy. If people spend, it will have an impact on the GDP. It will have an impact on government's policy on liquidity. So, and economics, if you spend some time understanding these linkages, it'll really help you in the long run. And I think that's something which will help you in any kind of a finance profession or a finance role that you take up eventually. And of course, as you kind of move up, you kind of go for your undergrad and your postgrad. There are specialized courses on banking, on financial services, on financial products, which obviously will then help you master those things so that you can then specialize and move into the finance area. But as your base or your groundwork that you need to do, I think maths, accounts, economics, these are three subjects which I think will really help you later on. But in general, knowing about what's happening in the country, what's happening in the markets is very important, because at the end of the day, whatever you study, you should be able to apply, and that you can only apply if you know what's current, what's topical.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice students should, I mean, skills that students should develop. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you. I wish you all the very best as well. And thank you for inviting me on your channel to talk about this.